Okay, so I think we're recording now. Again, welcome. And I wanted to make sure we document this because I know that we're going to hear some really cool tips and processes and ideas around getting the thing going. Tom's going to share with us today his process about how he went from the idea of going full time and what he has put in place to make it happen. So, without further ado, we're going to turn things over to you, Tom.
Thanks an awful lot, Kimberly. I'm going to share my screen here in just a second, so give me 1 second here. What I have to do with PowerPoint is I have to share the screen and then go into presentation mode. So everybody bear with me for just a moment. I want to make sure everybody can see the screen first before we go into anything else. Can you all see the screen? Yeah, we're good. Okay, cool. So, as I was driving over to the office this morning, I had a conversation with a really good friend of mine. We always talk to each other right before each of us does our presentations to different groups, and it's as much of a support mechanism as it is a motivation mechanism for each of us to do well. Because my friend said that he could see how each of you were going to be able to get at least one thing from the presentation, and that's the important part. Is if you just take away one thing that will help you. Although most of you are pretty much experts by now being on the road, there are always possibilities of things coming up that you might learn from somebody else doing some research. So the key here is when we're thinking about going on the road, I want to talk about what today's agenda is going to be like. So the fact is that when we consider the journey that we're going to take going on the road, the big question is, why do we really want to do this? Right? I mean, why do you do what you do? Why do you live where you live? Why do you want to go on the road from place to place? So the journey is going to be a really big part of what we're going to talk about today and share with you. The second part of the agenda is going to be the pathway. In other words, where on the journey are you going to go? And what that means is that where are you going to go and when are you going to go there? The timing is everything, right? Because of the different seasons we have in this country and the different places that we know or we don't know. We have to do research and all of those different things. And by the way, the research that I've done, I could speak about this topic for the next 7 days and probably not run out of things to share with you. That's how much there is to know and learn. So I'm going to condense it all into the 30,000 foot view so everybody can kind of get an idea of what it is that somebody might do from the very beginning. And so once we move on from path, then what venues are we going to visit on the path of our journey? There are an inordinate amount of different types of RV venues to visit along the way. Some are strictly for RVs, and some of them are for other purposes. But you can do you can visit with your RVs as well. So we'll talk about that in a moment. And then the tools, of course. How are we going to get there? And what tools do we need to support the travel journey that we're on? So finally, after that, when we talk about the different types of tools, then we'll talk about what the possibilities are for the journeys that we have in the future. Most important part about that is that you could literally think of what if scenarios forever. The key here is going to be what resonates with you. That's the most important part. I see every week we have everybody sharing different stories about where they are, where they've been, and so forth. Those are the possibilities that we're talking about. So let's move on a little bit and see how we can kind of go from the beginning. The big part of the journey is, why do you really want to get on the road? Well, I think these pictures probably can evoke some emotions about why each of us would like to go on the road, right? So, in the beginning of the journey for me, the way I've chosen to do it would be to move from the Southwest, which is where I am right now, is Southern California. I'm on the border of Central and Southern California, but it could be in Arizona, could be in Nevada. But that's basically the Southwest for what I would see as this part of the journey. Now, having said that, in a year or two, when I make full circle and I come back, maybe I'll start off in Arizona or Nevada and go on from there. See? So there's another possibility there. But the idea is we want to start out in somewhere, pick a point to start and go from, for me, it's the Southwest through April through May, work my way up the coast into the Northwest. And then that would be probably June, sometime through July and August. There is so much to see in the great Northwest of our country that you could probably spend the lifetime, the rest of your life there and still not have seen everything. So again, we're going to hit the high spots of what we've chosen. We're going to sit down, we're going to map out the idea. Like for instance, I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt today. I'm not going to Hawaii on this journey, but there are going to be places that this will be appropriate. Now, I might need some cardigan sweaters when I'm up in the Northwest, even on some occasional nights in June and August, because it does get chilly from time to time. So you obviously want to bring a good set of clothes changes because you want to be able to fit into the different environments that you're in, the different seasons and so forth. And then, of course, from June through August, what we're going to do is move across the top of the United States because obviously we want to be there in the prime time, which is the summer. We don't want to be shoveling snow or driving the RV in the snow because that wouldn't be necessarily a lot of fun, right? I'm sure all of us have had that opportunity at one point or another. We know what we want to avoid, right? So we would travel then from up through August into the Northeast. And there's probably no better time in this country to see the changes of seasons than it is in September in the Northeast. Having grown up in Massachusetts for 21 years, I can attest to the fact that this picture right here in the Northeast is pretty accurate when it comes to the beauty and the changing of the seasons, the feeling that we're, kind of culling ourselves from one thing and we're moving into a new shell of another. So that's one of the nice parts about the Northeast is that we want to get there before the snow and be gone long before it starts to come down on us, right? That's the whole idea. But if you're a skier, you may want to stay there and you may want to ski along the northwest or northeast or the other parts of the upper part of the United States. Depends upon what your journey is going to take you to do. So once we get through that travel to the Northeast, then we can move ourselves down the coast to the Southeast and move there between September, October, November, and then into December. Now, the key about moving down the coast is we get an awful opportunity to see the changes of the seasons, but also we get to experience the warming of the weather back down into the south of the east part of the country. And that's the beautiful part about going on this particular journey for me is I don't like the cold. So I want to make sure that I'm in areas where I'm staying pretty warm. I don't have to worry about that too much. Now, other people are just the opposite. They love the cold, they love the ski-dooing and the snow and all that stuff. They may want to take this journey the exact opposite direction, and that's fine with me. That's the beautiful part about this being available for all of us, right? So the research that I've done, the mapping that I've done is critical to understand what type of vehicle you're going to be in when you're looking at this journey. The pathways are going to be important because some pathways will support larger RVs and other pathways won't. So that's part of the decision making, that's part of the research when we're going on the journey itself and we're basically plotting the map. We want to make sure that we've decided on what we're going to use to get there. I'll get into the tools in just a few moments, but the idea is that's a big consideration. That's a big part of mapping out your journey. Now, this last part about it is that I want to drive from the southeast across the southern United States and make my way January, February, March back to the southwest. So we've come full circle. Now, I look at that taking a full year of being on the road in different venues. The next year, I would look at a different route, a different pathway on the journey. I might come down a little bit further into the top of the United States, more central, northern central, kind of go towards the East Coast, but not quite to the coast, and then maybe do a lot more of the Midwest on the way back. Just depends upon how I experienced the first year, and then we'll see how it all worked out from there. Does that make sense to everybody? So again, it's our own individual pathways, but that's the one that I've chosen for myself for getting started. And then say that again. I thought I heard somebody say something. I'm sorry. So anyway, that's the pathway. There's so many choices, right? Where we're going to go is important because it's individualized for each of us, and those are probably you could sit here and you could map it out for 6 months and then take a look at it and go, you know what? I think I might want to do it a little bit different. But you got to start somewhere. You got to make a decision about where you're going to go and then have some flexibility. When you get someplace, maybe you'll hear about something that you haven't been to before and you'll take a detour and then you get back on your journey, right? So that's the whole idea behind it. There are basically so many choices, but the idea here is the why. Now, one of the things that I look at as far as possibilities are concerned is what is it that comes to mind first? I think it's timing. Timing is probably as important as anything when it comes on this journey, right? I'll give you an example. I used to play an awful lot of golf, and the only thing that I only asked the golfing gods for was two things: a hole in one and a perfect game. And a perfect game is scoring 72 on a par 72. And we worked probably our whole lives to get something close to that, right? And I can tell you one morning it was just one of those things where it was the timing, kind of like when um, I had an opportunity at the age of 13 to have to drive somebody to the hospital in an emergency. And I learned how to drive a car pretty quick because it was the timing of the situation. I was the only one available. That person couldn't drive, and I had to get him there in a hurry, right? So again, we're talking about timing and everything. And then circumstances come into our timing. So, in other words, like I talked about with the detour, right? When I was very, very young, my folks taught me how to ride a tricycle. Unfortunately, they didn't teach me how to put on the brakes. So it's the timing and it's all the events that go along together with each of us, right? That make our circumstances our experiences, right? So let's talk about one of the things that I want to talk about here is the venues. Now, there are literally tens of thousands of venues around this country that will allow us to use an RV. Again, what we want to talk about is the type of RV that we're going to be in. We want to talk about where it can go, how old it is. Some RV resorts restrict you in the age of the vehicle. Some resorts restrict you in the size of the vehicle. So again, this is all part of the mapping out process to figure out where we want to go, how we want to get there. And the idea is to have choices. Now, there are a lot of people on the internet right now who are experts at RVing. One of the fellows I follow is his name is Andrew Steele, and he's got a little YouTube video called RVing with Andrew, and he does a really great job of traveling around the country. He's more in the exclusive resorts, the RVs that have the motor coaches, the motor coach resorts, rather than simply RVs. But the idea is that he's making a whole living just traveling around the country, letting the rest of us know what those possibilities are and where we could go. And the thing is that each of those resorts is going to have something for everybody, basically. So the key here is when we get into these venues, we take a look at some of these venues. Do you want to be by the ocean? Do you want to be in the desert? Do you want to be by lakes or waterfalls or in the mountains? All of those different choices, right? Those are the places that we get to make that opportunity for us. And whether you want to stay there, like for instance, Mike, you just drove in last night. I don't know how long you're going to be there, but I imagine you're not staying there for the rest of the year. So you're probably going to move on to someplace else, right? That's the whole key is that once you get to a place, now we look at what's next. We're going to stay here for a while, what we're going to do here, and then what's going to be next on the journey that we take. So that's the beautiful part about that. And then, of course, when we talk about the tools, are you going to get a Class C motorhome? Are you going to be in a Class A? Is there a Class B involved? All these different iterations of what it's going to be like really basically comes down to what is it that you want to do. I was looking at a Class C originally, but then I realized that with a Class C, although I might be able to go more places and fit into more places, I'm going to probably be cramped a little bit in space for me. So the Class A was a better choice for me because now I can feel like I'm in a home, basically. It might be a small one, but it might be my home and it'd be enough space for me to drive around the country. Although this particular picture that you see here is a what we call a real true luxury motor coach. That's a Newell, one of the premier motor coaches on the road today. Those are pretty expensive, and in order for you to get one that I think is affordable, right, for most of us, you got to get one that's a few years older. So then you got to go look at which RV resort will allow you to come in with one that's a few years older. How old? What are the restrictions, and all of those different things. So that's all part of the research that you want to do for your journey because these tools are great, but then you've got another tool. Are you going to be towing something with you? Are you going to be towing a boat? You're going to be towing a car? Are you going to be towing something else? Are you even going to go in a pickup truck and maybe have an Airstream? Everybody's uniquely different. And so I just chose these as examples because I have such a short period of time to share with you. But the idea is that these are all part of the decision-making process before you get on the road. What are the tools that you're going to use? Where are you going to go? What's the most likely journey? What's the timing of the journey? This time of the year and all of that. So that's mainly the research that I've done so far. And then, of course, the possibilities are what I would consider to be endless. I mean, you could look at what if scenarios forever. It's very much like when I was riding that tricycle and the timing of it, right? It was great that they taught me how to ride the tricycle. They didn't teach me how to put the brakes on. So I ended up face first into a tree, and that altered the course of my life radically for many, many different reasons. But the idea was is that it was the timing. When I was driving that car at the age of 13, I ended up getting that person to the hospital. They were able to live past that day because they were in the middle of having a heart attack. And so everything worked out great, but it was a matter of the timing of it, right? And our journeys take us on these different opportunities. Success is when we're prepared to meet the opportunities right at hand. And so when it came to golf, the only thing that I asked my golf gods for was a hole in one and shooting a perfect score. And I happened to do both of those in the same year. So then I couldn't play golf anymore because I got everything I asked for. So the idea is that it's timing for all of us, but the possibilities for you and me may be very different. The idea is that what is it that works best for you? What is it that is going to allow you to choose the next venue? Or do you just leave it open or do you have it all planned out? Everybody's got it differently. And the whole key to all of that is the fact that what we really want to do is we want to just be resilient, be flexible, enjoy the life. We have several businesses to run, or we just have one. That's all, again, choices and it's flexibility involved. So, this is to me what I think is really the perfect lifestyle for those of us who, well, basically, we're professionally unemployable, right? We don't want to work for anybody else. We want the resilience, we want the flexibility. We want to be able to go out there and do our own thing and still have community with this group and have an enjoyment of our lives because let's face it, none of us get out of here alive. And we want to make sure that we can maximize the amount of time that we have while we're here, right? So thank you for the time. I'm grateful that I've had the opportunity to present to us, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you,
We're out
Tom,
of time.
and thank you for jumping in and showing us the way.
No problem.
Yeah, good
We had to
stuff.
have somebody do it, right?
Yep, and fabulous photographs.
Very nice.
Fabulous
Thank
image.
you. I'm going to stop the share right now. So
Okay,
here we
I'm gonna
go.
ask I'm
Perfect.
gonna ask the first question, Tom.
go, John.
Okay.
I I I own an older RV. Mine's a 1997 Holiday Rambler. It's in great shape. However, when you did your research on different campgrounds that would let you in, what were some of the things that you found out about older RVs?
10 years or younger is Some of them are 6 years or younger. It just depends on the scale, the upscaleness of the RV resort. If it's a true luxury RV resort, um, no matter how good it looks, no matter what kind of condition it's in, they just go by the year only. So every single one of them is different. That's why it's important to do the research ahead of time.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I'm in trouble, is what you're saying.
Well, the idea is you're only in trouble if you want to go to a place that doesn't accept them that old, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's just you gotta choose you gotta call ahead and choose the right place. There's a lot of places like we have down here. We've got a beach area that's just right along the coast. It's actually right 20 feet from the water,
Yes.
and the people line up their RVs there, okay, and it doesn't matter what year they are, as long as they're movable and they come in and they can go out because it's by the day, they don't have a problem with it. Now, just up the road a bit, there's a state park, and they only allow certain years. So
Mm.
every single one of them is different.
Yeah, we have a place like that here in Massachusetts. I didn't realize you were from Massachusetts. But Horse Neck Beach State Park is like that. You can park all along through the park. Doesn't matter how old your RV is, and you're like right on the water, right on the ocean. Beautiful.
Yep. Yeah.
Mhm.
Same with Maine. There's a lot of places like that. And New Hampshire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
John, I traveled a lot in an older trailer than the one I have now.
Mhm.
It's like my third trailer, I think. And most of the parks that I went into for just a short period of time didn't really care too much about what the age was. Once in a while, I had to shoot a photograph and send it to them just
Hmm.
to show that it wasn't, you know,
Dilapidated
didn't have parts on the roof, you know. For the
Yeah.
most part, if you're just going in and out, I traveled all over the West Coast with trailers that were, over 10, 12, 15 years old. But then when I tried to, if I wanted to book like for a month at a time or more, where I started to do longer things, then they were really strict on typically on the West Coast was the 10-year rule,
Mm.
was kind of the thing that I ran into. But even that, sometimes I could just shoot a photograph and show it to them, and they were like, "Oh yeah, that's cool," you know. So
Yeah.
it's
A couple of places that I called. It's funny, Airstream, the Airstream trailers look the same, right? Doesn't matter what year they are, pretty much. You can't
Yeah.
tell. So they didn't have a problem no matter how old it was. They knew what Airstream looked like. They
Yeah.
just wanted to know the condition of it on the outside. And as
Hmm.
long as that was good, shoot them a picture, they were fine with it.
Hmm.
yeah. If you got plywood doors and
Yeah.
it's
You got problems.
like you might run into a little bit of an issue.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I found out so much about what I don't know about going on the road, doing this research, that I
Mm-hmm.
literally could talk about it for a week. There's so much there available as far as, when you go to hook up, what are the different support tools that you need to hook up? Do you need to, like instant hot water, those types of things that they don't normally tell you about? There's all these different pieces of research I came across that, I mean, literally, you could do on-the-job training, but it's not as much fun, right? Because you're like, oh, I need this, but I got to go 20 miles to go find it, right? So it's better to do all that research ahead of time. And I learned so much about the potentials of what could be coming challenges. The one thing I did discover, and I know this about most other businesses as well, is when you find a solution to a challenge, there are inherently new challenges
Mm.
to that solution. It's pretty
Mhm.
amazing.
On the RV Nomads.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now you'll have to write a book.
Well, I have
Funny you should mention that.
Well, now that you say it.
If you're looking for good educational stuff, Escapees has got some amazing stuff in their university and even on their free section, on just like an insane amount of information on every level of RVing. And then if you're a member, they give you all kinds of information. And there's all kinds of RV maintenance things that you can get where you can just call a guy when you're messed up and they'll sit there. That's happened to me one time. I got somewhere and all of a sudden like, what was it? My air conditioner wasn't working, but everything, all the other electric was on. And I'm like, what the heck is going on?
Mhm.
How come that's not working? And I'm checking the breakers and I can't figure it out. And I got on this online RV repair site and I just paid him $15 or something to talk to the guy. And we were walking it through it and he troubleshooted it while I was talking there. It turned out to be a loose connection in one of my ends of my electrical cable, you know. So the cable with the power lead was just kind of bouncing. It wasn't all the way there, so it wasn't getting enough electricity, you know. And I just took it apart and rewired, put a new one on. So, but those kind of things are really handy. And I gotta say, dude, you just mapped out my next year. I don't know. I mean, no, I already had done that. I'm like, I've already got reservations. I'm in Yuma today. I started in Florida and I came across through Texas and then Arizona and a couple of places in Arizona. Today I'm in Yuma. Now I'm headed up. When I leave here, I go up to South Lake Tahoe and then into Bend, Oregon, up into Portland area and Mount Hood Village. Then I shoot up I-5 and hit about 6 parks up through Washington, up into La Conner, which is the top of Washington, cut across to Spokane, go into Glacier National Park, shoot across to the lakes, go visit John over in the east, and goof around over there. Then I'm going to come back down and end up back in Arizona again. You know, it'll take me a year to do that round trip. I mean, I've got the first 6 months already booked, all the appointments, all the stuff already mapped out. I know exactly where I'm going. So
Nice.
I change it, but I do a tentative booking 6 months in advance,
And I
you
know an
know.
exceptional Northeast tour guide if you get over this way.
Oh, you are already on my list, man. We already talked about it. I've got a couple of parks not too far from you, and then I'm coming over there and you're showing me around, man.
Oh yeah,
It's all
it's done. You're gonna love it.
yeah.
Awesome.
Some of the best.
Right. We could talk about it. I mean, literally, you could talk about mapping this stuff out and all the things you need. And
Mhm.
even though, let's say, for instance, that you're in a Class A motorhome, if you're in a Class C, there's a whole different set of tools that you would be using. There's a whole different, towing setup. There's a whole different type of vehicle you could tow. Um, with the Class A's, you get 20,000 towing capacity, but with the Class C's, not so much. All of those different combinations, really, basically, it's just got to be about what fits you as an individual,
Mhm.
what your lifestyle is going to be like. Do you like to fish? I'm not a fisherman, but I'm going to be by lakes because I like the view. But
Hmm.
it doesn't mean that who knows, I might learn to fish. I doubt it, but I might learn to fish. And so, you get exposed to new things. A lot of these RV resorts now have they've got paddle tennis courts. They have all these other new different types of sports that are coming up. They have trails, they got horses, all of those different things for everybody. And it's pretty cool. I looked at one yesterday and they had life-size chess pieces. And the chessboard is huge. And when you play a game of chess, they have somebody move the pieces for you. I mean, it's just like there's all different kinds of things that you can do. So yeah, I mean it's endless with the research that you can do. It's just a matter of making it, like you just said, Mike, it's just about what you're going to do, planning out your time, doing temporary, right? Reservations because something might change 3 months from now and you may go in a different direction. So that's the beautiful part about the flexibility.
Andrea Center.
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna mute that.
There you go.
Very good. Yeah, there, as you've said several times, Tom, there's so many different directions and possibilities you can go, and it is about your personal desires and what you want to create. And when
Oh,
you add the level of entrepreneurship on top of it, doing business on the road, that's a whole nother round of conversations you can have with yourself.
right. And did you notice, and I don't know if anybody noticed or not, but when I used to teach people how to be public speakers, we'd teach people how to speak to each learning style of your audience. So
Hmm.
some of us are why people, some of us are what people, some of us are where, some of us are how, and some of us are what if people. And
Hmm.
you notice in my agenda, I addressed each of those so that each of you who are each of those could be looking forward to that part of the presentation. The other part that I did is something that's called nested loops. Now, these innocuous stories I talked about with golf and driving the car and the tricycle have nothing to do with the presentation. But what they did do was they opened up your subconscious mind, waiting for the rest of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And while you're waiting for the rest of the story, your subconscious mind's paying extra close attention to everything in between. And then when I was done with the presentation, I closed those loops out in reverse order. And it's like putting the top of a Tupperware container onto the container and sealing in all of the freshness. Your subconscious mind now has kept all of that information inside.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
So there's a book titled Presenting Magically by Dr. Tad James. And if you want to learn the basic structure of what I did and how and why it works, that's the book to learn.
Nice.
Because all of us give presentations. Some of us give them shorter, some of us give them longer. But if you're going to teach a class like over a day or two or three, this is a great structure because there's a way to break it down as far as the time increments are concerned. I only had 20, 25 minutes to do this. But in the 3-day photo reading seminar that I teach, we take a break every 90 minutes. Well, I've got to structure those 90 minutes with the exact same structure that I just used for this one. So there's demonstrations involved and all of that kind of stuff. But if you want your students to really learn and take it away where they actually integrate it, where it's their knowledge instead of just something that they learned a year ago and forgot about it. That's the difference between a really good presentation and one that's like just there to collect your money. You want to give them a lifetime of learning, and that's the way to make sure that what you're sharing with them stays with them.
Love it.
Mm-hmm. So did you ultimately decide on the rig that you're going to take? Like, are you
Well,
gonna...
I've ultimately decided on the type of rig that I'm going
Yeah.
to take. I haven't decided on the one yet, but I
Yeah.
have decided in my research, I've decided I'm going to be in the Class A for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at an 8 and maybe 12-year-old Newell. I think those are the best ones made because they build the entire motor coach from the ground up, including the frame.
Yes.
The only thing that they don't build on that is the engine and the wheels,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
the axles. That's the only thing they don't build. Everything else they literally build by hand.
Yep.
So if you get one that's 10 years old with 60 or 70,000 miles on it, you can get it at a very good price. And they're going to do, I mean, that cat engine, the engine that they have in there's a 605 horse diesel that probably could do 1 million miles if you treat it right.
Oh, easy.
So, yeah,
Probably
right.
two.
So for me, that's the best value that I found for my purposes is to have the 45-foot motor coach from Newell. That's the company that I would like to get them from. And there's a company called the Motor Coach Store in Bradenton, Florida. That's where I would buy mine from. They do the best job of taking them in trade, reconditioning. They have a massive process that they go through, and these vehicles look like they're brand new when they get done with them.
Can I make a suggestion to you, Tom? Have you driven a 45-foot Class A before?
I have.
Okay. Okay. Because I see a lot of guys who I know people who bought Class A's and driven them from one part to another and got scared to freaking death and
Mhm.
couldn't drive it anymore. Literally paid $300,000 for a coach and then parked
Couldn't
it,
drive.
you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah. I
one of
used to
the things
drive
that
a. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say before I went on the road full time, I did I kind of did it in increments. I mean, I bought a Class B road trek that I used for just weekend trips,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because it was in and out. You can get into coffee shops, you can do all kinds of cool stuff with it, right? It's great for that. And then I did a longer trips, a week at a time. And then I rented a Class C and went to Yellowstone for 2 months. I went through Yellowstone and a couple of places for a couple of months just to see if I could even handle being in a motorhome or a trailer for a couple of months. before I started going out and really dealing with it. And then when I took off, I started out in my road trek. I was in that for 3 months, and then went me and my 80 pound dog. That was just too small, you know. But then I bought a junker freaking trailer with a gas truck for almost nothing, and said, I'm going to try this for 6 months with this. And if I don't like it, I can throw that away. And it didn't really cost me anything.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
It was really inexpensive,
Mhm.
and then I kept working my way up. And that gave me time to be in parks and talk to people, go look at their rigs, talk to people while I was out on the road, and go, well, why do you like this? Why do you like that? Why do you have that? Why do you do this? How's that going to? And so I just kind of interviewed people park to park I'm in my third trailer now, but it's a 2022,
Hmm.
that I bought new. So, that's kind of how I did it. I did it in levels so that I made sure I knew where I wanted to go, you know.
Mhm.
Well, that's the beauty, what we were talking about, the different iterations and the different ways that you can be flexible and resilient at the same time, because moving into one type of an RV to another, I think you did it the smart way for sure. I just happened, I had a history of driving large trucks, not tractor trailers, but like 40 footers with a big box on the back and delivering things when I was younger. So I'm comfortable with that size. And to me, the journey is going to be more about the locations that I end up in, not the traveling on the road. So it's about me being more comfortable in the vehicle itself rather than where I'm going to be traveling on the road. So I think that you did it brilliantly, because that way you get a chance to experience it. And the interviewing of all the different people, I mean, that just is incredible, because there's no better person to teach you what you want than somebody that's already doing it,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
cool. Well, listen, guys, thanks for having me. I got another one coming up and I got to go. So we will see you soon. Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
thank you so much. We appreciate you. Next week, John,
Everybody,
Check will
awesome.
be our speaker.
Woohoo.
Okay. And then Mike, Patrick, I'm gonna see you probably pretty soon. I don't remember when we rescheduled, right?
Yeah, I think I had to reschedule it. So yeah, I don't remember when we're doing it either.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
because
anyway.